Hey everybody, it's Bob Crossan, Senior Managing Editor for Water and Waste Digest, and today we have the first of our WWD 2021 Top Projects video interviews. Today I have with me Jim Nash. He is Oakland County, Michigan Water Resources Commissioner, and we're going to talk about the Clinton River Water Resources Recovery Facility Biosolids Handling and Septage Receiving Project, a primary focus of which was pre-treatment for thermal hydrolysis to improve biosolids and reduce the facility's carbon footprint. So, Jim, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate you taking the time and congratulations on a 2021 WWD Top Project.
No, I appreciate that. It's a great project. This is something that's important for the environment, and it's good to be honored by this. It's great.
Yeah, so prior to this call, we were talking about just the scope and scale of this project and how you have multiple different buildings that you're working from. Could you give us a little bit of a rundown of that type of thing and also tell us a little bit about the community that you serve as well?
Certainly, this facility is in Pontiac, Michigan. It's an economically disadvantaged community, and they've have this is a very old facility from back in the 40s, basically. So we took this system over about 5 years ago, recognizing it needed massive improvements for it to be sustainable for any period of time. This again, it's an economically disadvantaged community, so we worked to bring in 12 other communities, the 30% of their flow into this facility. This saves those other communities money because it's cheaper to treat it at our facility than in Detroit, where it would normally go, and it helps investments in the facility itself. So the city is, instead of paying all of it, paying just a little over half of it. So in doing this, we had to make sure that the system was up to date. So we've been working on these projects to do a bunch of different things to bring it up to date. And this was a major part of that. So we've had for years complaints about odors from the facility. And that's one of the reasons we really wanted to get this off the ground. Different way of treating the sludge from sewage, instead of just, lightly treating it and having it as liquid and spraying it on farm fields where it's a toxin. We're making it high quality fertilizer that we should be able to use, our communities use for landscaping and things like that, basically free from the process. Plus, we're producing massive amounts of methane that we'll be able to run the plant off of and run this process off of. The cost is about a little over $40 million. State revolving fund money. We began in 2017 and we've just finished up last August. August of 2020. And again, this is going to be a massive improvement for this system, make it cheaper to operate and maintain. We're going to be saving about $2 million a year just in landfilling costs from the solids we used to landfill. And again, we'll be bringing a lot of our operations energy from this process to run it from our saving about half our costs in energy, and we'll be using far less fossil fuels. So this is just, it has benefits in many, many areas.
Yeah, just the updating from such outdated equipment. You're talking about some of this stuff is from the 1940s. That huge leap in technological advancement has got to be really incredible for the operators there to work with then too, because I'm sure that a lot of that, as much as there is the onboarding elements that you probably have to do there of training and whatnot, once they're up to speed, I imagine it's a lot easier for them to work on this facility now.
No, absolutely. It makes it much more operational. Again, we use SCADA systems so we can operate and maintain this remotely, many, many systems across all our systems. And this is one of those. This is the kind of thing that we're making these improvements to systems that make them far more efficient to run, operate, maintain. The costs go way down in operating these things. And again, I've said this many times that I think in 10 or 15 years, most facilities are going to have these kind of operations in them because they can just save so much money over time and contribute to mitigating climate change. So all these things have big payoffs.
hmm So I did want to ask too, just from kind of a more mechanical standpoint of the project delivery itself, what was the project delivery method that you guys chose for this project? This is a really interesting subject for me because I feel like a lot of our top projects have different ways that they went about doing this, whether it was design build or CMAR or design bid build. What choice did you guys make in that regard, and why did you choose that option for your delivery method?
Well, again, we have a good core of contractors here that we've worked with for a long time, and some of the newer ones that we've contracted with. There were a couple of minority-owned systems that we've been using, and we were overseeing the project. It worked out extremely well. We had a lot of collaboration on the system. We first started researching this nationally, and this is the only the third in the country to start the operations, and the first in Michigan. So there's one in Washington, D.C., which is a much larger scale than our system is. And we kind of looked at that and said, this is something that can have huge paybacks for us. So we really wanted to make sure we're doing this in the most effective way possible. This was like you said, we had several different buildings, some from scratch, some very large renovations and improvements. So again, this was something done but with kind of corralling several contractors, really doing well, working together, and the back and forth was extremely successful. We're doing a lot of things here that we hadn't done before. We're bringing a septage receiving facility to it. We hadn't had one there before. This allows us to bring in more solids that will go through this treatment to produce methane and other things like that. It helps the local folks to do all the septic systems that they clean. It's very good for the communities nearby. It's really doing the best we can with all these materials that normally would have just gone into a sewage and be, in Detroit they burn solids. So there's a much more effective way in doing this. We had two anaerobic digesters on the plant. One didn't operate. One was not operating well. We completely redid the one that was not operating well. It's at peak now. We changed the other one to make it a smaller one, and then we have a giant inflating storage membrane that can fill up with massive amounts until it's being used or siphoned off for other uses. So these are the kind of things that we're doing that weren't there before. We talked about the odors and the biosolids. It used to be a large open area, again, where just would sit there until it was taken out, and the odors would be, significant in the community around it. So now these are far more dry solids coming out of this system, and so the odors are just dramatically lower. It smells just like good solid dirt rather than sewage solids. So you can handle it with bare hands. The old stuff you had to, you could only do it remotely. You couldn't touch it. You couldn't breathe it. So this is completely free of any live bacteria at all. So we study it for all the potential chemicals that can be in it. They're all below what they need to be. So this is something we can use in landscaping anywhere we need to use it, and it's free for the communities that are contributing flow to it. So everybody benefits from that.
Yeah. So you mentioned a couple of things there, one of which was the septage receiving facility, and in the nomination form that was submitted for this, part of this was indicating that you wanted to be a better neighbor, you wanted to be a good community resource, like you've been saying. How did you guys set out goals for that? Did you have benchmarks that you wanted to reach with that specific facility when it was up and running?
Well, sure. We have a couple other places around the county that we can take it, but they're not as big and they're not as has capacity. So some of them were taking it down to Detroit. Again, it's more expensive to take it there, so they'll be able to save less mileage. Again, we're in the center of the county, so it's much more reasonably reached by everyone. And again, this is something that we have a significant number of septic systems in this county, and we have to make sure they're maintained properly. So this is something that's important to all our the environment that we all depend on.
Yeah. So one of the things too, like you said, this thermal hydrolysis was a big part of this project and the pre-treatment for that. Was thermal hydrolysis already in place there, or was this also a new addition that you guys are working through?
Well, this is a new addition. Basically, it's like giant pressure cookers. So the solids come in, they're salted with water, and then they're very high heat. That breaks down the cell wall. So when it goes over to the anaerobic digester, the anaerobic digester can do about 4 or 5 times as much production as the old the old product that we used to use. So again, it's much more efficient in the processing of these solids to bring out that methane that we can use. So it's a huge payback for that. Again, this is just another way of the septic system facility is just another way to bring in more if we can. There's potential in the future. If we use non-sewage food waste into this system, we could use it through that septic facility. If you use that, you can bring in even more methane out of it because you're producing that as more capability of producing methane. It hasn't already been digested. So again, this is something that we can, over time, run the entire facility off of the methane that we produce, and then potentially even a few vehicles, compressed natural gas vehicles off it. So there's potential that any system like ours that has any kind of significant waste flow can produce their own energy. And I think that's something that really needs to be replicated across the country.
Yeah. Well, and it's such a cool story to tell, especially in this climate of like environmentalism and whatnot. This type of thing is like such a great story to tell. But I wanted to know too, so like I had mentioned earlier about like the training and onboarding and stuff like that, was there a lot of training involved in getting the employees up to speed with this thermal hydrolysis system and how that operates with the anaerobic digesters? What did you guys do in
Oh,
terms of training like that?
sure. We worked with the contractors that designed and built it, that had started the operations in the other two facilities in the country. So this was patterns, and this is something that had been in Europe for some time. I mean, this isn't brand new technology. Europeans have been using this for quite a while, and this is something that's just really coming to this country. So yeah, we have significant training around that. Again, our SCADA systems, our remote operating systems, are very efficient. It's just really adding new things to it. So they had significant training on SCADA already. And the new training was just, to supplement that for the new systems. But again, this is something that's been going on in my office for quite some time. Again, bringing us into the 21st century is something that a lot of systems are still kind of back there in the 20th century. And the more we get up here, the better we'll be in the long run.
Yeah. So you had also mentioned so that going back a little bit to what you had said before about like the odor, and that was a concern that you guys were running into with complaints and whatnot. How did you guys address that? Was that simply just by introducing this thermal hydrolysis and bettering the anaerobic digestion, or it kind of solved the problem on its own, or did you have to find some type of odor control solution as well?
Well, in the meantime, between recognizing the benefits of what this would bring to us, we did use some significant different methods of trying to contain the odors. And it did work, not as well as we had hoped, and there were still complaints around it, but it had toned down those complaints significantly. And plus we had been working with them for kind of a stakeholder group within the community for a good 8 to 10 months before the project started, to kind of make them familiar of where we're looking to see where those odors are and how we're trying to treat them. And we set up a kind of a system of local folks to call us if they smelled something, so we could come down and track and see where if we can find out where it's coming from. So we really had a lot of community development of this project too. And it's so important to do that, because you can't just come in and make all these changes and say, hey, look, we're making all these changes. You gotta have back and forth with the community so they understand what you're doing. If they have complaints or ways we can maybe do something a little better, we can make that happen before we start the project. It's really, really been successful.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome, and like I said, this was such an interesting project from a scale perspective, having the multiple buildings and the complexities involved there. It's great to talk to you and learn a little bit more about the thought processes behind a lot of those things. Congratulations also once again on a top project. Do you have any shout outs for others who had worked on this project that you want to recognize?
Oh, absolutely. The man in charge of the system is Mike. Oh my gosh. Oh, names. Oh Lord. Mike Daniels. Oh my gosh. Mike Daniels is the head of that, and he really oversaw the project. Actually, someone who used to work for me now works for the Great Lakes Water Authority. They just had more opportunity for him there. He now runs all their sanitary sewer systems, and he really was. He and I kind of developed this project in 2015, 2016, and from that, we took over when he left. And again, it's been a significant group of folks. My leadership team played a huge role in that. And again, all the folks that worked there really put their work on hold for everything else as this went through. And we operated the system, but everything was kind of consumed by this. So my whole staff at that facility really worked hard to make sure that's happened right. And it really did. So I'm super proud of these folks. And we really do a good job at this office.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. And for everyone who's watching, we will have written articles for each of our top projects published in our December 2021 issue of Water and Waste Digest. They'll show up on our website as well. And be sure to stay tuned every Thursday from here through the end of the year. We're going to have a new video interview with our top project winners. And thanks once again to you, Jim, for talking to us today. You're the first one that we're publishing. So congratulations once again on a top project. We're very excited to share this project with everyone.
Well, thanks so much. Glad to be here.